The Young and the Restless spoilers the unraveling of Diane, secrets, lies, and betrayal. Genoa City, once a place where the Abbott family's legacy thrived, was now a battleground of deceit, vengeance, and dark secrets. For years, Diane Jenkins had been a woman shrouded in suspicion. Ashley and Traci Abbott, despite Jack's insistence on family unity, had always eyed Diane warily, knowing that there was more to her story than she let on. But as time passed, they allowed themselves to tolerate her presence, for the sake of Jack, who had fought to keep his family together. But as the truth began to surface, it became clear that the veneer of civility between Diane and the Abbott sisters was fragile, at best. Diane's secrets were finally coming to light, and as the layers peeled away, it became evident that her involvement with Martin, and the devastating consequences that followed, had been far more insidious than anyone could have ever imagined. Diane's web of lies. A relationship built on deceit for years, Diane had played the role of the caring, supportive woman who had somehow managed to weave herself into the Abbott family's complicated tapestry. But beneath that facade, Ashley and Traci had always known that something wasn't right. They never trusted her, but Jack's belief in her and the family's need to heal after so many years of tumult kept them from confronting her. They had been patient, tolerant even, but now that the chaos of Martin's abduction of Ashley and Traci had brought all the family's skeletons to the surface, it was clear, the truth could no longer be hidden. Diane had been living in the shadows of her own lies, and now, those lies were catching up with her. The conversation, secrets exposed. One fateful evening, Traci and Ashley found themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time. While walking through the house, they overheard a conversation that would change everything. Diane, ever the master of disguise, was speaking in hushed tones to a man they didn't recognize. As they eavesdropped, the chilling realization struck them like a bolt of lightning. This man was none other than Martin, the very same man who had kidnapped them and held them hostage aboard the plane. The conversation was full of unnerving details. Diane and Martin spoke of their alliance, their plans, and the information Diane had been feeding Martin to further his vendetta against the Abbott family. Diane, the very woman who had ingratiated herself into their lives, was not a victim of Martin's cruelty. She was his accomplice, his partner in crime. She had been helping Martin for months, if not years, and her betrayal of the Abbott family was far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place as the truth became undeniable. Diane had been the one to provide Martin with the critical information he needed to manipulate and terrorize the Abbott family. And what was even more damning was that Diane had never truly broken ties with Martin. Their relationship, built on a foundation of secrets and deceit, had allowed them to manipulate Jack and the entire Abbott family for their own purposes. Diane's lies, the truth comes crashing down. The more Ashley and Traci listened, the more the realization hit them. Diane had been playing both sides, pretending to be part of the Abbott family while secretly conspiring against them. She had been feeding Martin inside information about the family's movements, their plans, and their vulnerabilities. She had been a silent accomplice in every twisted move Martin made, helping him to terrorize them from behind the scenes. But Diane wasn't just a passive participant in this nefarious alliance. No, she had been actively involved, willingly helping Martin as he plotted his next move. Her motives were unclear at first. Was it money? Revenge? Or was it something more? Regardless, it didn't matter anymore. Diane had shown her true colors, and they were far darker than anyone had ever suspected. It was only when Diane wanted to pull away from Martin that things started to unravel. She had grown tired of their dangerous partnership, but breaking free from Martin's grasp was no easy feat. He had made it clear that there would be no easy escape. Diane had tried to distance herself, but Martin wasn't one to let go of his allies, or his leverage, so easily. When Diane tried to sever ties with him, the consequences were swift and severe. The threat, Martin's wrath in their conversation, Diane's frustration was evident. She wanted out of the alliance, wanted to get away from the man who had dragged her down into the depths of this twisted web. But Martin wasn't about to let her go without a fight. His threats were chilling, his voice low and dangerous as he reminded her that no one left him unscathed. "Do you think you can just walk away from me, Diane?" Martin had snarled, his voice oozing with menace. "You're as much a part of this as I am. If you try to turn on me, I'll make sure your secrets are exposed, and you'll never see the light of day again." The tension was palpable as Diane tried to backpedal, realizing too late that she had made a dangerous enemy. But the damage had already been done. Diane had been part of this twisted plot, and now she had to deal with the consequences of her own choices. But there was one detail Diane hadn't accounted for: Ashley and Traci had heard everything. They had overheard her entire conversation, including the fact that Diane was involved in Martin's machinations. And that was the final straw. Diane's carefully constructed facade had come crumbling down, and now the Abbott sisters knew the full extent of her betrayal. The fallout, Diane's true nature, exposed the revelation that Diane was involved with Martin sent shockwaves through the Abbott family. Jack, devastated by the betrayal, struggled to comprehend the full extent of what had happened. He had trusted Diane, allowed her into his family, and now he was faced with the harsh truth: Diane was a monster, a manipulative woman who had used him and his family to achieve her own goals. Ashley and Traci, though heartbroken by the betrayal, knew what needed to be done. The truth could no longer be hidden, and Diane had to face the consequences of her actions. She had lied, manipulated, and deceived, all while hiding in plain sight, pretending to be the supportive stepmother and wife. But the truth was out, and Diane's time in Genoa City had come to an end. The sisters, their anger and betrayal boiling over, confronted Diane. The confrontation was intense, filled with accusations, raw emotion, and the realization that Diane had never truly been a part of the family she had pretended to care about. Diane tried to deny it, to save face, but it was too late. The truth had already been exposed, and her attempts to salvage her reputation only made her look more pathetic. "You thought you could play us, Diane," Ashley spat, her voice cold with fury. "You thought you could tear our family apart, and we'd never know. But now, you've exposed yourself for what you really are: a liar, a traitor, a monster." Traci, equally enraged, added, "You've been helping Martin all along, feeding him information, putting us all in danger. You have no place here anymore." Diane's final reckoning in the face of the overwhelming truth, Diane was left with no choice but to confront her actions. But instead of taking responsibility, she attempted to shift the blame, to convince the Abbott family that they had misunderstood her. She was cornered, her manipulations unraveling in front of her, and all she could do was stand there, seething in rage, as Ashley and Traci stood tall, unyielding in their condemnation. Diane's betrayal had been one of the darkest chapters in the Abbott family's history, and it was clear that her time in Genoa City was over. The damage she had caused could never be undone. She had betrayed the very people who had shown her kindness, and now, she would have to face the consequences of her actions. As she gathered her belongings, preparing to leave the city she had once tried to call home, Diane's heart was heavy with the knowledge that she had lost everything. Her reputation, her relationships, and her future in Genoa City were all but destroyed. And in her final moments in the city, one truth became undeniable. Diane Jenkins was a monster, and the Abbott family was better off without her. Her departure marked the end of an era, but it also signified something far more significant: those who lived by lies and deceit would eventually be exposed, and those who had earned their place would remain standing. In the end, the people who truly deserved to be in Genoa City were the ones who had stayed true to themselves, and Diane, with all her treachery, was no longer among them. Diane's confession: the battle between truth and betrayal. The Abbott family had always been a family of strength, of loyalty, and of love. But in the wake of Martin's ruthless terror, the veil of civility had been torn apart, exposing the most painful truths. For years, Diane Jenkins had been part of that family, a woman who had charmed her way into their lives, appearing as a loving wife and stepmother, but in reality, she had been feeding secrets to the very man who was trying to destroy them. Now, with everything on the line, Ashley and Traci demanded the truth. They were willing to offer Diane one final chance, to confess, to speak the truth, and to come clean about her loyalty. Would Diane choose redemption, or would she continue to betray the people who had once trusted her? A tense confrontation. Diane's moment of reckoning. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension as Ashley and Traci stood before Diane. Both sisters had been through so much, and the betrayal they had uncovered was a bitter pill to swallow. They had heard enough to understand the depth of Diane's involvement with Martin, but what they didn't know was whether Diane would finally come clean and beg for forgiveness, or whether she would double down on her lies. Ashley, Traci, I know you've heard everything, Diane began, her voice trembling, her eyes swollen from crying. She stood there, a broken woman, the weight of her deception finally catching up with her. I never wanted it to be like this. I never meant for it to go this far. Please, just let me explain. Ashley, ever the composed and strong-willed woman, stepped forward, her gaze unyielding. We're giving you a chance, Diane. A chance to tell us everything, the truth. What do you want from your future? Do you want to remain a part of this family, or is your loyalty truly with Martin? Traci, her voice softer but no less firm, added, This is your chance, Diane. Be honest with us now. We've endured enough, but we won't stand by and let you destroy everything we've worked for. Diane's plea, a woman torn between fear and guilt. Diane's breath hitched as she struggled to find the words. The tears flowed freely now, as she relived the shame of her choices. I don't want to be a part of Martin's plans anymore, she confessed, her voice breaking. I never thought it would go this far. When I first started helping him, it was because I was afraid. Afraid of what he might do to me if I didn't cooperate. He threatened me, Ashley. He told me he'd ruin everything I had if I didn't give him what he wanted. She looked down, unable to meet their eyes. I know I should have told you the truth. I should have trusted you. But I was scared. I thought that if I kept going along with it, maybe he would leave me alone. And now I can't undo it. I can't fix what I've done. Her voice wavered with fear and regret. I never wanted to hurt you, Traci. I never wanted to hurt the family. But I did. I let Martin use me, and I helped him because I thought I could keep my own happiness intact. But now I see how wrong I was. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. The price of fear, Diane's confession. Ashley and Traci exchanged a glance, their emotions running high. Diane's words had broken through the anger and betrayal that had been simmering within them, but the weight of her confession left them no closer to understanding her true intentions. Was this simply a woman trying to escape the consequences of her actions, or was this a genuine plea for redemption? I don't believe you can undo the damage, Diane, Ashley said quietly, her voice firm yet tinged with sorrow. But I also understand fear. I can't imagine what it must have been like to be under Martin's control. But that doesn't excuse your actions. You've betrayed us all. Traci nodded in agreement. We've been through so much. And you played a role in it all. You helped Martin because you were scared, but that doesn't make it right. You didn't protect us, Diane. You let him destroy our family. Diane's face twisted with anguish as she struggled to find a way to make them understand. I'm sorry. I was wrong. But please don't let this be the end of it. I don't want to be a part of Martin's plan anymore. I can't live with the guilt. I'm begging you, please, I want to make it right. The room fell silent, the weight of Diane's confession hanging heavy in the air. It was clear that she was at a crossroads. The truth had been laid bare, and now it was up to her to prove whether her remorse was genuine or if it was just another act in her long history of deception. Diane's dark proposition, a final betrayal just when it seemed as though Diane might finally redeem herself, the true depth of her desperation emerged. Her next words would take the conversation to an entirely new, and far darker, level. I know what I've done, and I can't undo it, Diane continued, her voice low and hushed, as if afraid someone might overhear. But if you truly want to stop Martin, if you want him gone for good, I'll help you. I can help you kill him. Ashley and Traci froze, their eyes wide with shock at Diane's unexpected proposal. The room was thick with disbelief. What are you talking about? Ashley demanded, her voice rising with anger. You want us to kill Martin? After everything that's happened, after everything he's done to us, you want us to become murderers? Diane's voice trembled, but she was unyielding. I don't want him to hurt you anymore. I don't want him to hurt anyone. He's been controlling me for far too long, and now it's time to end it. If you keep this secret, if you help me, then we can be free of him. We can finally live without fear. Traci recoiled, disgust etched on her face. You want us to kill him, Diane? That's your solution? No. That's not how we solve this. You're trying to drag us into your mess, and we won't do it. You have to face the consequences of your actions. But Diane persisted, her eyes pleading. I'll do anything to make it right. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Please, don't tell anyone what I said. Help me end this, and I'll leave you alone. I'll leave Genoa, I swear. I need to fix this. I can't live with myself if I don't do something. Please, don't make me lose everything. The final decision, truth and consequences. Ashley and Traci stood there, stunned by Diane's twisted offer. The horror of what Diane was suggesting, her willingness to go even further into darkness to protect herself, only reinforced the fact that she was not the woman they thought she was. Diane had truly lost herself, her morality eroded by fear and desperation. No, Diane, Traci said firmly, her voice resolute. We won't be a part of this. We won't murder someone to fix your mistakes. You've chosen your path, and now you must face the consequences. You have no one to blame but yourself. Ashley nodded in agreement. You want to fix things? Start by taking responsibility. You've betrayed us, and now you need to make things right in a way that doesn't involve more lies and bloodshed. Diane's face crumpled as the reality of her situation hit her. She had been offered one final chance at redemption, but her desperation had led her to ask for something that was beyond the pale. She had truly crossed a line, and in that moment, the sisters saw her for what she truly was, a woman who would do anything to protect her own skin, no matter the cost. With one last, broken sob, Diane left them, defeated and crushed by the weight of her own guilt and fear. As she disappeared into the night, the Abbott sisters knew that their family could never be the same again. Diane's actions had shown them that some betrayals went too deep to ever be forgiven. And as much as they had once hoped for reconciliation, they now realized that the only way forward was without Diane Jenkins, the woman who had torn their world apart.